But Sonny Vaccaro, basically, Gary told him about me because Gary came to my tournament. I put the first ever Squires Richmond shootout together in 1993. And we end up, Ray Allen had stayed with me this summer before that. Ray Allen, when I met him at a tournament, I drove down to South Carolina, had dinner. His mom, Flo, is my girl, had a buffet dinner, one of the best cooks ever, all that good food down there in Dansville, South Carolina. When I drove down with my cousin, Flo was telling me, she said, Tony, where Ray is at the court right now. Went over to the court and got a chance to get with Ray's father and saw Ray, playing out on the court, even though we had met at a tournament. But let me tell you this little piece, and I'll get back to it. Also on the court that day was Ray in high school. His teammate was John Morant's dad. And I could have probably had John Morant's dad to come down and play with us also. But that particular time, I just brought Ray in from Dansville. And we also had Mike Minifield, who was a top 75 player from, he was from Greenville, South Carolina, because Garnett was from Malden. But while Ray and Mike was staying with me, Ray was the first one to tell me, he said, T, I got to get you hooked up with my guy. And I said, who is that, Ray? He's like, man, his name Kevin. He said, he's younger, T, but he got some problems. I said, okay, he's young. Let's we can talk about it. So I started communicating with Kevin Garnett, not knowing no one really knew who he was at the time. But anyway, he played with a good friend of mine that I met that Ray and him had started playing with, Robert, by the name of Robert, that had Metro AAU in South Carolina. So after I met Ray and them and invited the mom, everybody to come down, Ray came down and stayed with me the summer before his senior year, him and Mike Minifield, and played in some tournaments. And then after that, communicating with Kevin, we end up bringing Kevin in with his team to my first ever tournament in 1993. And at that time, Gary Charles had the #1 junior in the country, a guy by the name, do you remember this name? You go Google him, Zendon Hamilton. He was a 6'11", 7-footer out of New York. He was the #1 junior in the country. So we brought him down, brought Kevin down. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just trying something new and finding some ways to raise some funds for our kids because we didn't have any sponsorship. When I first started this thing, I had a friend of mine to go to A&M, buy me 15 pair of shorts. I had another friend of mine at work that brought me 15 T-shirts. We put some numbers on that thing, and that's how Squires got started. So, I was always trying to find ways to raise money. And so we brought the tournament down, and Lord had it. We had over 100 Division I coaches. That's when I met my man, Dave Lato, that's been a head coach at numerous places. Then I had Scott Perry, who was like the GM with the New York Knicks now. So we go way back when he was an assistant at Michigan. And so after all that, when Gary told Sonny about me, obviously, we had this other program that it came up. They had all the high school coaches. They had all the money people behind them and all this. They had everything. I was getting a lot of guys that was left, and some guys just took the chance and played with us locally. But anyway, Sonny said to Gary, who is this guy you told me about? He said, I done looked him up. He doesn't have any sponsorship. How in the world did he bring in, first of all, had Simeon and Sammy Haley, the 7-foot twins from Myrtle Beach. We had Junior Burroughs first when I started branching out, bringing in kids from other places. Then I brought in the twins. Then I bring in Ray Allen and Mike Minifield. Then we bring in Kevin Garnett, and also had Ricky Moore from Augusta, Georgia, that played on the UConn national championship team in 1999, who's now the assistant coach at North Carolina A&T. So Sonny was like, how in the world this guy bring all these people in with no sponsorship? He don't have anything to give them. I don't have no money to give nobody. I just basically went on integrity and promised the parents that we would do the right thing. We would take them to some events and do the right thing by them and hopefully get them some exposure, and the rest was history. So Sonny Vaccaro chose me and made me the first ever sponsored program or high school in Richmond and Central Virginia. And we were second in the state behind Boo Williams. He was the first program to ever be sponsored by a shoe company. So we was with Adidas, and then we end up leaving with Sonny when he left Adidas and went to Reebok, and that's another story. So that's pretty much how it happened.
Man, that's amazing right there. I've been waiting. Can you please tell us about I think his name is T. Morant. That's John Morant's father. His name is T. Morant. What kind of skills did he have?
Well, when obviously I don't saw him play that one time, but keeping up with Ray and them, heard about what he's doing. I mean, he was athletic. He was going on all natural ability. He even said this, and he was in an interview. I saw an interview probably a couple of weeks ago. He said, "Yeah, I played with Ray. Ray and I played." He said Ray was just a workaholic. He said I was going on natural ability. So I guess that's what he learned from, and that's why he made it. You know, that's why he did what he did for his son, to make sure his son got that work ethic piece in, to do the extra stuff that maybe he didn't do while he was in high school.
Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you one more question.
Okay.
What about Rick Barnes? What does that name mean to you?
Well, Rick Barnes is, you know, I watched him play last night. Tennessee looked real good last night. I was like, woo, Rick back at it again. I met Rick when I was volunteering. You know, I went back and started volunteering at my old high school, and got involved with kids. And here I go again. I didn't have any of this stuff, man. I didn't know. I didn't play my last couple of years of high school when they combined schools, played at a community college, but I didn't know about any of this stuff because we didn't have AAU around until I brought the first program here in 1987, 88. But anyway, while I was, you know, as an assistant coach, you know, we had a kid by the name of Butch Mars. That was our first pro. And when I met them, you know, I started asking questions. I was like, Coach, how did these kids become all Americans? How did this kid get this? How did this kid get in these McDonald's games? How did this, that, and other? So I ended up meeting Rick. He was, at that time, he was the head coach at George Mason. So Rick told me about AAU. I had never heard of AAU because, again, we didn't have it. So after he told me about it, I started making a few phone calls. And, you know, then the commissioner at that time called me and said, man, I'm so happy. We've been trying to find somebody to start something in your area. He said, I'm so happy, man, that you're doing this. You know, so we end up starting. Then I also met, you know, Tubby Smith. I know I'm jumping the subject a little bit, but I did two people that introduced me to two impact people. Tubby introduced me to 5-Star, and Rick Barnes told me and gave me the blessing to tell me about AAU. And that's when everything got started. You know, that year in 87, got Butch Mars into the 5-Star camp. He was unknown. He got to play against Alonzo Mourning. And in the All-Star game, he gave Alonzo 23 points. So then his recruiting skyrocketed because he was like the new kid. No one knew who he was. I sent him, and at that time, Alexander Coles, who played on my first team also, that ended up going to the University of Delaware. And then also Bill Bell was at the camp too. So it's like those four was from Virginia: Milton, Lonzo, Butch Mars, and Alexander Coles. I had no clue what the shoe thing was all about. Bruh, I put it to you like everybody talks about. They say that, T Squire, you know, it's like the mob. You're the head of the Virginia family. Because Sonny Vaccaro used to bring us all out to Santa Monica for our annual meetings. It was like the head of all the programs. We come out there and go over everything. And then when Sonny blessed me with that, then he said, I'm gonna give you a shot. He said, I'm gonna have you as the head selection person for the ABCD camp. And if people probably never heard of it, all they got to do is Google it. That was the biggest camp in the world where everybody made their start. Tracy McGrady, Kobe, you know, all of them, LeBron, everybody. They've done documentaries on this thing about the ABCD camp. And Sonny blessed me and gave me the position as the person to handle all the selections for Virginia. And that was in 1999. I invited 6 guys my first year. 5 of them made the All-Star game, and the other ones should have, but the guys behind the closed doors when they were doing the voting got a little jealous. Man, this T Squire first year, we can't have all his guys making the All-Star game, and he should have made it. But that's when Sonny said out then, at the meeting, Tony Squire gets the A rating. He has the eye. And that's what made people understand that for whatever reason, I have an eye of understanding what needs to happen, how you need to be playing, and what all these other things happen. And that just put me at another level, man. Once you become sponsored, because think about this, there's only a certain amount of sponsored programs around the country yearly. And once you become that, they use it, the terminology, you're the head of a family, like one of those mob families, how they used to be. And that's basically what it is. Because after that, once you become sponsored, your name goes to all the college coaches, all the NBA people, and everybody else, because they know you're the guy now they need to contact.